So Majid, it's wonderful to see you, and you are giving me the difficult task now of testing our new friendship.
Yes.
The first time we met was opposite one another on a podium known as Intelligence Squared, and the proposition was Islam is a religion of peace. And Majid was opposing that. And
supporting it.
You were supporting it.
Yes.
Majid was supporting it. Yeah, Majid was supporting it. I was opposing it. Good to get that right.
Yes.
And what leads to the third bit, which is much more intimate, is Majid's wife met him on that night, and that was October 6, 2010. This was before
You remember the date? I didn't remember that date.
I do.
Wow.
It was a big deal. I don't do Intelligence Squared every night, so you remember something like that. And I remember it was you and a young woman who looked very modern and was very modern. And we disagreed passionately. And you met there after the event, my friend Sam Harris. And the two of you got so angry at one another that at some point I thought you were going to punch his face. Yeah. Thank goodness you didn't.
Oh, he would have. He's actually a really good martial artist. He would have really beaten me down.
Yeah.
I since learned he practices mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
So thank goodness I didn't.
Take a seat either in a chair or cross-legged on a cushion, and gradually become aware of the sensations of sitting, feelings of pressure in your back or legs. Feel your arms at your sides, and perhaps take a few deep breaths.
Excellent advice, particularly for those of us who have bloodied our ears and scrambled our brains as a result of enduring the most recent episode of the Waking Up podcast with Sam Harris, knowingly and ironically titled The Best Podcast Ever. Now, I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Dr. Harris and the podcast in question. Any cave dwellers present looking puzzled at this stage should pause the video, go straight to iTunes, and subscribe immediately. It is one of the best podcasts out there at the moment, and Sam, as we all know, is brilliant. A philosopher, a neuroscientist, a deep thinker, someone genuinely interested in exploring ideas and moving difficult conversations in new and useful directions. He is also, however, a unique model of patience, and always manages to maintain a Zen-like composure, even when engaged in fierce disagreement over topics of extreme consequence. Being fairly far from my own temperament, I must admit I find this rather creepy at times, in addition to being admirable in many respects. His voice is calm and steady, profanity rarely uttered, his cage seldom rattled, his Buddhist practices rendering him as close to a real-life intellectual Jedi as we are ever likely to meet. It turns out, however, that all the meditation in the world cannot prepare you for a conversation with a brash and sanctimonious millennial who is more concerned with appearing correct than actually being correct. Enter Omar Aziz and a 3-hour knuckle-chewing dialogue that proves one thing at the very least. An Ivy League education may buy many qualities, but good faith, wisdom, and self-awareness are not among them these days. I am, of course, not going to play you the whole episode. The two discuss Islam, as you might expect, with Omar claiming essentially that Harris is simply a money-grubbing opportunist who lacks any, wait for it, nuance. This is palpably absurd, and needless to say, Omar puts negative intellectual pressure on Sam's main arguments by the time he actually bothers to understand and engage with them, and from that point of view, the podcast is a total snorefest. In another respect, however, this episode is surprisingly stimulating, And that is due to the fact that we all get to witness Sam, perhaps for the first time, reach his breaking point, become truly exasperated, and lose his cool. And to my mind, this reaction was entirely justified. Omer was rude, abrasive, and dishonest within the first 10 minutes, practically, of his appearance on the show. He is simply in attack mode the whole time, and totally uninterested in learning anything, and actually having a productive exchange with a highly accomplished author and public intellectual. It was a disgraceful appearance, utterly embarrassing, all about point scoring, and it wasn't long into the exchange before we learnt, as a result of all of that, to my endless joy, that you really can only push a Jedi so far before it's on.
And now, for better or worse, I give you Omer Aziz.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, look, we've already established that there is a market for this and a readership for this, and that it is a trend. You know what you should have done then? If you don't want to create a perception of trying to make money, if you and Majid don't, go and do a scholarly, serious study of Islam and what needs to be done. Do you think it's difficult to call for a reform of Islam in America today? Do you actually think it's difficult? Does it threaten your security? It's simple.
No,
it's intellectual fast food, Sam. There are plenty of reformers that are working on the ground
you're
every single
filibustering me.
day. Okay, is Islam the problem here?
Yes.
That's bullshit, Sam. Politics is everything.
You're so far from reality here, and you're so satisfied that you're in touch with it. So just listen to me.
That's nonsense. You're peddling a fallacy here. That is a deranged, deluded conclusion. This reads like a long email exchange between two people. I can't believe I spent $20 on it or whatever the price was. He compared Islam to the fucking mafia. Honestly, dude, you're deluded, man. To defend.
Stop.
As an attorney and someone who is
Jesus
actually...
Christ, Omer, this is not how you have a conversation with another human being.
Dude, you're deluded, man. Let's boil this down, because you're not an impartial arbiter or peddler of sophisticated arguments. You have said some very chauvinistic things. We miss the nuances when we use these kind of blanket statements. We miss the nuances. I do not need to be educated. I'm an educated individual.
Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Listen to me, Omer. You look like an asshole. Every fucking word is parsed in the least charitable way. Wait.
Natural has a certain meaning.
No, this is a stupid little trick that you have to stop using because it makes you look terrible. Condescending stupidity isn't going to get you fucking nowhere, so just listen to me. You are talking about her as though she would execute a nuclear first strike on the Muslim world, right?
No, that's your position, right?
Bullshit. Fucking bullshit.
Sam, don't speak to me in those tones.
Okay, the pause you hear from me is I'm trying to figure out how to proceed here. You will hear me at my least patient, and I'm not proud of who I was in those moments. And you will also hear a fair amount of despair from me at points. I hate who I was with Omer. If there's anything in this podcast that embarrasses me, it's just how annoyed I let myself get, and very early on, merely having a conversation with another human being.
Well, I'm not embarrassed for you, Sam. I disagree, in fact. Your frustration was glorious and totally appropriate. Now, I'm not saying you make it a foundation of the podcast or anything, but you have to understand, this guy has been slandered and misrepresented by damn near every pseudo-intellectual in the galaxy, and I regard the temper he displayed in this episode as an eternal two-finger Hitch-style salute to all of those unscrupulous people who are too dishonest, petty, and unaware to have real conversations, Omer included. There is something about the combination of blind ignorance and unyielding arrogance, particularly in a young person undergoing education with very few accomplishments under their belt, that pretty much defines the word insufferable, and I think many of us are surprised you kept as cool as you did, to be perfectly honest. Omer refused to concede a single point, even on topics that he could not possibly have any knowledge of. Listen, for example, squirming in your chair as the guy attempts to persuade us for about an hour that he can read minds and knows why Harris writes the books that he does, even after Harris has himself denied those motivations and explained why they're ridiculous. Incredible. The X-Men are clearly missing a rather powerful member. And Omer, please, learn from this experience. I understand that pride often gets the best of us, particularly in the heat of public debate. But if you just bite the bullet every now and again, tap out and admit your mistakes, you'll end up saving a lot more face in the long run.
Sam Harris, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me, man. This is really cool. I've watched a lot of your videos online. I've enjoyed every one of them, and I liken some of those debates that you get into with those old Gracie in Action videos. Have you ever seen those old Gracie in Action videos?
I'm not entirely sure, though. I know the ones you're talking about. I've seen a lot of Gracie material. But,
yeah. Well, the Gracie in Action videos were really the first videos that Horian Gracie, who's Hitlio's son, and, Hoyce's brother, is a brilliant businessman, and he realized that all he needed to do was put together a series of real-life encounters between a trained jiu-jitsu practitioner and some guy who thinks he knows how to fight. He's sure he knows how to fight,
right?
And then he just gets mangled every time, every single fight. You would watch those, and you'd almost feel bad for the guy getting strangled, but not really. That's how I feel when I watch a lot of your debates.
Well, that's very high praise. I can tell you it's not as satisfying in the debate format as it is on the mat.
I'm sure.
Because no one ever taps. I mean, it's like you're It's like you're fighting, an army of zombies that they've lost, but they can't be forced to admit that they've lost. So people are pretty good about not having epiphanies in real time in front of you. So you can see people get uncomfortable, and you can see them want to make a lateral move to a new subject. Because there's a lot of one of the great strategies, or one of the less noble but effective strategies of debate is to, if you've lost a point, you don't concede it. You just kind of move on to something else and hope no one notices. It's amazingly unsatisfying, even when you feel like you have said exactly what you should have said, because they just won't buy it. It's just like fighting with fog. It's like no one ever falls down, and it's occasionally you score a blow that the audience has noticed, but even then the audience is partitioned into your side and the other side, and it's amazing how invulnerable people's prejudices and biases are to argument.